Imagine a world stretching from the shores of the Adriatic Sea to the deserts of Arabia, from the gates of Vienna to the heart of North Africa. A world where cultures, religions and traditions collided, clashed and merged over centuries. This was the Ottoman Empire, one of the most powerful and enduring empires in human history. Welcome to Tides of Memory, where the past isn't forgotten. My name is Tom, and today we explore the rise, the glory, and the lasting legacy of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman story begins at the end of the 13th century, in the rugged landscapes of Anatolia. Here, a small Turkic principality, led by a man named Osman, carved out a foothold amidst the crumbling ruins of the Byzantine world. It is from Osman that the empire would take its name, Ottoman, or in their own language, Osmanlı. His tribe was just one of many, yet through skill, timing, and a bit of fortune, it grew into something far greater. In the early years, the Ottomans were known not just for their military power, but for their pragmatism. They were quick to adopt the administrative practices of those they conquered, blending Turkish, Islamic, Persian and Byzantine traditions into a uniquely Ottoman identity. This flexible approach allowed them to absorb diverse peoples and lands without tearing themselves apart. By 1453, the Ottomans were poised for their greatest triumph. Led by Sultan Mehmed II, known to history as Mehmed the Conqueror, they laid siege to Constantinople, the ancient capital of the Byzantine Empire. After a brutal campaign, the city fell. The walls that had withstood centuries of attack finally crumbled. Constantinople was renamed Istanbul, and it became the beating heart of the Ottoman world. Its strategic location between Europe and Asia would make it one of the most important cities on earth for centuries to come. Under the Ottomans, Istanbul flourished. Grand mosques rose alongside ancient churches, bazaars bustled with goods from every corner of the known world, cultures mingled in the coffee houses and gardens. For many, Istanbul was the very center of civilization. The Ottoman military machine was legendary. At its core were the Janissaries, elite infantry units originally made up of Christian boys taken from their families through the Devshirme system, converted to Islam, and trained to be loyal only to the Sultan. Though brutal by today's standards, this system created one of the most disciplined and effective fighting forces of the era. The empire reached its zenith under Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, who ruled from 1520 to 1566. Under his leadership, the Ottomans expanded deep into Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Suleiman reformed the legal system, earning him the title the lawgiver among his own people. His court was a center of art, science, and philosophy, rivaling the greatest courts of Renaissance Europe. His architects, most notably Mimar Sinan, designed buildings that still inspire awe today. But empires are rarely static, and the Ottoman story is not simply one of conquest and splendor. It is also a story of adaptation, struggle, and decline. After the death of Suleiman, the empire faced growing internal and external pressures. Europe was changing rapidly, propelled by new technologies and new ideas. The Ottomans, proud of their traditions and successes, were slower to adapt. The empire became increasingly decentralized. Local governors, or beys, gained more autonomy, while the central authority weakened. Corruption seeped into the bureaucracy. The once elite Janissaries became a political force, often interfering in the succession of sultans and resisting reforms that threatened their privileges. Despite these challenges, the Ottomans remained a formidable power well into the 17th century. They continued to control vital trade routes and maintained a diverse and complex society. They oversaw a vast array of peoples: Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, Kurds, Jews, Slavs, and many others. The Ottoman approach to governance was often surprisingly tolerant for its time. Non-Muslims were allowed to practice their religion and manage their own communities under the millet system, though they paid special taxes and had fewer rights than Muslims. The 18th and 19th centuries brought even greater difficulties. European powers grew stronger, fueled by the Industrial Revolution and new ideologies. Nationalism began to stir among the many different peoples of the empire. Provinces started to slip away. Greece gained independence. Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria followed. Meanwhile, European empires increasingly sought to carve up Ottoman territories for themselves. One of the greatest humiliations came with the Crimean War and later the Balkan Wars, where the Ottomans were forced to rely on foreign powers and suffered major territorial losses. Intellectuals within the empire debated fiercely. Should the Ottomans modernize and adopt Western ideas, or should they double down on Islamic traditions? These debates would define the final century of Ottoman rule. Efforts to reform, known as the Tanzimat, began in the mid-19th century. The empire sought to modernize its military, administration, and legal system. New universities were founded, newspapers flourished, and railways were built. But reforms often met resistance from conservative forces and were undermined by corruption and inefficiency. By the early 20th century, the empire was known as the sick man of Europe. Its decline seemed inevitable. Then came World War I, and with it, the final blow. The Ottomans sided with the Central Powers, and when the war ended in defeat, Allied forces occupied Istanbul. The empire was dismantled, its territories divided among the victorious powers. In the aftermath, a new force emerged: Turkish nationalism, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Through a brutal war of independence, the remnants of the Ottoman heartland forged a new nation, the Republic of Turkey. In 1924, the Ottoman Caliphate was officially abolished. After over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire was no more. Yet the legacy of the Ottomans lives on. In architecture, in cuisine, in music, in language. Across the Balkans, the Middle East, and North Africa, the echoes of Ottoman rule can still be felt. The empire that once straddled continents continues to shape the world in ways both obvious and subtle. To understand the Ottoman Empire is to understand a vital chapter of human history. It is a story not only of conquest and collapse, but of resilience, innovation, and cultural fusion. It is a reminder that no empire, however mighty, is eternal. But the ideas, the traditions, and the memories they leave behind can endure long after the final banners fall. Until next time, let the tides carry you deeper into history, and as always, stay curious